Hello, so before we start talking about the implants, I just want to mention two things. One, it's a lot easier if you just find the chips for them, then you'll be able to use them almost all the time. But otherwise, you'll just have to stockpile a lot of them. And number two, well, I have to make a video about the augments implants at the same time, but that will be a little harder to do because it will be a very long video, so I don't want to do that. And I think I will do it after the next update comes along because that might change a few things here and there. So I want my information to be reliable, and then I will reduce the video size as well. So yeah, you better stockpile a lot of implants, otherwise you might get lucky in the endgame and find some chip. So I recommend you search all of the electronics, you know, the ones that gives you the chip and the other stuff. Well, I guess I can show you. It's a little harder to understand where they are, but any location that can have a chip like the AI module or the switch ports, or disming the memory, even the memory records might have them. So search all of the locations that might have a chip, because then you might be locking you the chip for augmentation. And to be honest, well, you can get some pretty cool stuff like this one over here, the integrated magazine, but we'll speak about them right now. Just know that some of them will require a lot of resources, but most of them are very, very easy to make, as you can see from here. Yeah, this one's going to be hard with the hydraulic pump. Or this one with the bio-waste tank. So yeah, some things you'll just never make because they'll be too expensive. So let's show our Percy over here, and we'll first of all we'll show you what implants I'm using, and then I'll show you what are the other implants. Remove implant, and implant. So as you can see, your character will become very, very strong if you use these 6 implants. Cortex Stimulator just for crit chance and crit damage, which is great. Addiction chance will be cancelled by the blood filtration system. So that's the head. The shoulder, yeah, I tried to replace it. Oh yeah, another big note. You will never be able to stack shock in shock armor with this type of gameplay. I guess you could just make a very strong armor, but I think it will be cancelled by the extreme shock resistance debuff you'll be getting from all of your implants and augments. So it's kind of a useless thing to make, but I think if you have, let's say, minus 100, it still counts as 0. So if you put 60 armor, it will still count as 0 because it's minus 60. So I will have to test more on that, but yeah, no way around it. Besides, not a lot of enemies have the shock weapons anyway. So this is 20% range accuracy, which is actually amazing. I ended up keeping this forever because it's just too good to not use. And weapon reload duration -1. This actually fixes a lot of problems. So as you can see, we are fixing the damage problem, we are fixing the accuracy problem, and this will fix the reload problem as well. Just fixing a lot of problems one by one, because now you need to use these things in order to have a decent chance at winning the game. So what are the other implants I'm using? Well, this one for calorie consumption. Basically, I can do a 4-floor mission without ever eating anything and running at the same time. So yeah, this fixes all of the issues, because if you have someone like Percy who starts with a lot of calories, they'll need to eat a lot less, and you'll be wasting a lot less time just by searching for food or bringing food with you. It's actually pretty amazing. So yeah, you can basically play around with the burning lungs and have no issue whatsoever. And the reinforced epidermis actually is good because it cancels out some of the problems with the augments, like the wounding chance for the legs. And that's about it. It also gives you some physical armor that is very, very much needed. And to be honest, that's actually a great thing as well, because you get a little less physical armor, pierce, blunt, and cut, and then you also just get a lot lower wounding chance. Without this, I don't think you can play the leg, the augmented leg, which is the rubber one. It's going to be very hard to play the game without these two. So as you can see, most of the implants serve to eliminate a problem, and actually they're eliminating very, very big problems. The blood filtration system is just amazing. It's kind of like the best out of all of these, because it will mean you'll basically be able to flush out addictions, which means you'll be able to use anything you like to clear quasimorphosis, infections, which means anyone you get, you can clear, and toxins. Now, toxin, I think they mostly mean the wounds or some of the other stuff like the weapons. I'm not sure what they precisely mean by the toxins, but you can clear it. And the debuff is actually not that bad at all. I think they will increase the problems with the debuffs at some point. And as a note, you can also just use another frame. For example, you can use the rubberized frame over here. which will allow you to have a much better healing chance, a healing for the wound, and just increasing your med HP generation just in case you want to eliminate the problems with your current implants and whatsoever. And that's it. That's kind of like the best ones and the ones that will really change the way the game is played. Now I also have more in line because I want to speak about the other implants as well, and another very important one was the SPN shorts, which is just an eye you can use to reduce QuasiMorphosis by 1, but it also reduces accuracy by 30%. I had a lot of issues getting this one because it's one of the harder implants to get because SBN gets basically destroyed so much, they'll barely make it into the endgame. And when they make it, they'll also be in other problems, I don't know. It's a mess. So the idea behind the eye is that they reduce QuasiMorphosis by 1, which means two things. You can basically have no QuasiMorphosis, but only if you pair it with the cyborg head. So meaning QuasiMorphosis -1, QuasiMorphosis -1. Now the penalty is range accuracy -30%, which is huge and it will be a super big problem. So you cannot use it in the beginning of the game, which is kind of like the general theme over here, as you can see. Most of the stuff is for the end game. So that means two things. You'll either have to upgrade your clone with a lot of accuracy enhancements, but to be honest, it's not going to be worth it because let's say you want 10 accuracy enhancements. That means we want to go to level 35, so that's a lot of medical components, as you can see. So that's not really a feasible solution. Yeah, it will cost a lot less in the beginning, but you'll want to fill up your dodge and your other stuff before you go over there. But this could also mean another thing. If you don't get any more QuasiMorphosis in your missions, the missions will become super short and easy to do. So I guess if you use them, or if you don't use them, it doesn't really matter that much because with the cyborg head and the eyes, you'll be able to do a lot more missions. On the other hand, it might be a little harder to play without the robot head, the military cyborg head, and that crit chance thingy, but the debuff is not so bad. Also, in the future, I think this will allow us to use more QuasiMorphosic items. For example, the hand, which is a bit of a weird thing because, as you can see, it increases QuasiMorphosis by 1 and scatter. And that's kind of like it. It only gives you strike damage, which is a little too low in my opinion. But I think this will change over time as well. So don't imagine that this is only to reduce QuasiMorphosis. This will also be available so we can put more QuasiMorphosic body parts on us, if you want to think of it like that. So for example, you'll be able to use the leg without many issues because it will cancel out the thing. So -1, +1, you get the idea. So using a hand or a spider claw, that will be possible. So just think of it as more options. And I think they'll introduce more QuasiMorphosic stuff. And I think there's another magical hand that shoots lasers or something like that. I don't know. I haven't found it yet because it's actually very high on the Tets Clan technology tier list. So let's look at that a little bit. Again, this is just super endgame stuff that nobody talks about. So I think we have this one, and this is the range version. This is the melee version, this is the range version. So I'm still trying to find this one, but I think I killed 1000, I'm not exaggerating, over 1000 Quasimorphs and haven't seen it yet. That clan is also very close to level 10, but I cannot let them gather that much technology. It's a mess. The game is a mess, and I'm just trying to show you all of the in-game stuff, but it's hard. It's very hard to do that. Okay. So with that out of the way, let's speak about the other implants. The bio boosters. As you can see, the bio boosters basically do the same thing as the bionic lungs, which I don't understand why they both exist. The only reason to use this is that this is a chest implant and this is the stomach implant. But if you use this stomach implant, you cannot use the blood filtration. Anyway, it's a mess. Let's not talk about them. One of the worst implants in the game. Doesn't make sense. It will also reduce your piercing armor by such a huge amount. It's not even going to be worth it. I guess it has some uses sometimes. You get some immunity to poison, or not even immunity. You get some resistance to poison, but that's not even such a big problem. The bionic lungs we spoke about. Amazing, great. The other implant for the shoulder will be the artificial muscles, which are also pretty good for especially melee builds, but as you can see, it reduces your CAD resistance, which is not such a big problem. Also, this looks very muscular, but it looks like a knee in a way. So the idea is that if you're going to make a melee build, you cannot do it without this one. Plus the throw range is great for the grenades, or in case you want to throw your weapon. Certain weapons have throwing bonuses. And the load weight modifier minus 15%, so yeah. probably in the beginning of the game you will want to use the muscle instead of the other thingy, instead of the recoil suppressor, because more dodge in the beginning is better than more accuracy. Also, this is the cortex simulator we spoke about. This is another chest implant, which is a bit of an annoying thing because even though I guess the idea is that you can make build. Well, let's say like this. You can make some builds that totally ignore pain, but pain is not such a big problem in the endgame because you have dodge and other ways to deal with that. Let's give you max health and minus incoming pain, but the calorie consumption and the winning plus winning chance is just too brutal. I get the idea behind them, but I just don't see any use or how you can use this, especially because it's a chest implant and you just have much better ones, so I don't like this one. Neural jet per experience mode 80%, but calorie consumption 50%. So the idea is that you learn your skills better, but you're just going to play the game anyway. I guess this would be useful on some characters in the beginning of the game after you, well, not the beginning of the game, but the beginning of a new character. So if you want to make a new character, just give them a neural jack, but at the same time, you can also use the books to increase those skills. So in the end game, you will not be using the neural jack anyway, because you just have these things that automatically enhances the perks. This is a bit of a redundant one, and I think the developers will modify it anyway. Currently it's useless. Neurocortex perk cooldown minus 20%. Is it good? No, it's useless as well, because it's a head implant and you can actually put something great in your head. This is also pretty useless, plus the extra wounding chance is not going to be worth it just for the perk cooldown, which can be useful. I think only the melee build with the QuasiMorph class can actually use this, so it's a bit of a mix and match, but kind of useless. Over here we have the tissue thing, the body implants. Technically they're still chest implants, but I don't know, I guess it's the way they tell you they are. Okay, let's actually clear this a little more because I want to be very, very precise in the build. So let's say I put a heart implant. That will take out the bionic lungs. Let's say I put subdermal layer over here. Oh yeah, but I meant anyway the subdermal layer will be the one you want. So yeah, it's a body, it doesn't matter. I made a mistake over there. I'm not going to redo the whole video for that. But anyway, the idea is that you will have a lot of options over here, but I guess in the beginning most of the people will choose this one. By the way, laser means lacerations, which mean cutting wounds. So no cutting wounds and no pierce wounds, which are great because this means you'll not get decapitated too often, or you'll not get just killed by melee weapons that have cutting edges to them. So this is actually a more for melee things, because most melee weapons will do cutting damage, well, some of them at least. But this is great against, you know, that faction with the buzzsaws. What are they called again? The disc crawlers. We should have a couple of, yeah. The cutter, which is also this sword. Yeah, you get the idea. These ones are mostly for ranged weapons and such, but they're actually pretty good. Now over here is the one that I'm using right now. As you can see, it gives you minus wounding chance. I think this will be nerfed in some patch because it's just too good. It gives you 12 armor, 12 physical armor. So to be honest, I think you can just throw away all of your armor and just play without it, because we're getting a lot of good stuff for it. Of course, I don't recommend you do that. So yeah, this can also be good because it doesn't offer any drawbacks. So that's what we will be using most of the early game. And then when you have the chance, switch to this one. Because minus wound chance is amazing, but the armor bonuses are great as well. But it can be a little hard to find, and if you lose it, you'll be super, super angry. Now the thermal coating is also pretty good, but it's only for fire, the poison, and of course the beams. Which is good, but you also get a big penalty to the blunt resistance. So as you can see, all of these implants will work together more or less, otherwise you'll not have enough and you'll need to change your armor, which is just a whole mess and you don't want to do that. Induction frame makes you immune to shock status, but you get 25 shock armor and immune to shock resist to shock status, but the problem is there are not a lot of enemies who use shock damage anyway. It might be useful to use this in the early missions against Dilty, where they'll be using a lot of this, but at the same time, I guess it's kind of a rare thing as well. I found a lot of uses in, like I said, in the early game against Dilty and the robots with the shock weapons where they instantly kill you anyway. But if you don't have a lot of weight and you have a good amount of dodge, this is not as good as it could be. So again, this is good for the early game. And now we have the tissue regenerator over here. You'll have a 100% chance of getting wounded, but you also restore 5 HP per turn. Which means you need to play with augmentations, which means you need to play with a lot of... It's not worth it in my opinion, because you cannot play with wounds, but you can play with low HP. So this is a bit of a tricky thing to balance. I think the developers will also rebalance this at some point. 100% chance to get wounded every time you get shot is just too much, no matter what the bonuses are. It's like playing, I don't know, one of those games where people get hurt to make others laugh, ha ha ha. Yeah, I guess it would be good for a challenge run or something like that. Anyway, so that's why I wanted to also explain the differences between the chests and the body, because as you can see, you can get a lot of extra wounding chances if you just put the wrong stuff, or some of them might actually be worse in general for your builds. Also have a pain inhibitor for the shoulder, which will be good for melee damage, so more pain can be a problem. I should play with that clone that is immune to pain, so I'm not sure if this is going to work on the clone that is immune to pain or not, but it's such a niche build for the shoulder, and you also have these amazing two things for the... I just recommend use this for a melee build if that's the case. I think this will also get balanced at some point. Now over here we have the active ones, the active perks, which I don't really like or don't really use because you just have so many better options for these implants over here. So implant cooldown -8 could be good, but you don't really want to use active implants because that will just make your build be based on cooldowns, and that's not a good idea. And instead of the blood, well, the blood filtration, which is a stomach implant, you can use this one over here. Now, normally I technically use this more, but the other one is just too good, so this one is just too useful to not use. On the other hand, 1 to 50 shock damage in a radius of 4 can be super useful, especially if you can wound them with a shock wound, which is actually very penalizing for them. So, I don't know, maybe in the future we'll get a QuasiMorphic stomach or something like that, and you can also use this one. Also, this one doesn't reduce your shock armor whatsoever, so, see? It's a bit of a mixed bag, but this would be so much fun if you can use it more or less. I guess it depends on what we see in the future, but it's cool to speak about it, neural sonar. The downside is actually not that bad, and you can actually replace this as your normal head implant, because revealing in enemies of range of 15 is super useful in the beginning of the game, plus it works in all movement mode, and this is what you need to remember. So I think I'll replace the head implant with this one at some point, to be honest, because the other one that I keep mentioning is not so useful. Let me see what that one is. I mean, I'm not even sure it gives you the critical bonuses, because everything is kind of like work in progress right now. Wait, what is that implant? See, this is the problem. I never find them when I need them. Okay, over here, cortex stimulator. So that 5% extra crit chance and crit damage might not be so important. So at some point, maybe you will want to use this one instead of that other one. But the problem will be the incoming pain, which is not so bad in a way. So you can basically run around the place and find out where the enemies are. But to be honest, in the endgame, you already know where the enemies are, and you'll fight them anyway once you fire your gun. So again, this is one of those mixed bags type of deal because of the way the game is currently working right now. But in the future it might change, and you might want to use this one instead of the other ones, especially because it has such a low cooldown as well. And range of 15 is actually pretty huge, especially when you want to open a door. So this is kind of like the anti-door spamming enemies. But that also means you have to destroy the walls. So if you can destroy the walls, you will destroy them anyway. The last one is the Ultra Voice, which is stunning enemies within 5 ranges for 2 turns. Now, no enemy detection, that's not such a bad thing. I might use this instead of the other one, because let me explain. They say for 2 turns, which probably means a full turn. Now, in the case of my character has 4 action points, so if an enemy gets stunned for 2 turns, that means I have 8 actions. So yeah, I also think it will work on bosses or just general. I haven't tested it yet because I don't like it that much anyway. But it has a lot of uses. The problem is in the beginning you cannot get it very easy, and that's why it actually has kind of a limited use. So definitely this would be my number one implant for the game, because this is the only thing that really changes the way the game is played. So I'll have to play around with it at some point and we'll show more of these skills, especially because I want to showcase the discharge chamber and the ultra voice, but that will be for a let's play episode. So yeah, if enemies get too close to you, you'll just stun them, and this is actually a lot better than anything, because even if the stun is not that good, if you stun the enemy in front of a door, that means the other enemies cannot come in, or if you stun an enemy that is close to you, that means you'll be able to run away. And since there is friendly fire in the game, the enemies might end up shooting their friends or something like that. I don't know, so many cool options over here, but to be honest, the way the game is played in the end game is just a frantic running marathon to the end of the objective right now. Yeah, but these are the fun ones, and I think I'll have to play around with them after a while. These are just too good not to use, but these ones are just the fun ones. Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun when I try them. Bye bye.